Marcus sits down at a dinner party next to a man he has never met. They talk for 20 minutes about their jobs, their neighborhoods, and the friends they have in common. The stranger seems friendly. He smiles, pulls out his phone, looks Marcus in the eye, and gives him a score. 7 and 14. Then he goes back to eating his salad. Life feels normal, but everything just changed. I'm Penny, and that score isn't just a random dinner party number. It's your credit score. Most of us think we understand how that number works, but what we've been told is often completely wrong. You might think that paying your bills on time is the only thing that matters. In reality, that is just one small piece of a secret 5-part formula. Banks created this system specifically to control how much access you get to money for the rest of your life. It decides if you can buy a home, start a business, or even get a fair interest rate on a car. Right now, millions of Americans are accidentally destroying their own scores because they don't see the full picture. Today, I'm going to show you what that formula actually looks like and how to stop the invisible leaks in your financial life. To understand why Marcus got a 714, we have to look at that stranger as more than just a person. Imagine he represents the entire banking system. To him, you aren't a name or a face. You are a collection of habits. To make sense of this, we need to learn the language the stranger is speaking. First, there is your credit score itself. Think of this as the stranger's final trust number. After your 20-minute chat, this is his gut feeling about how reliable you are, boiled down into a single 3-digit figure. It tells him exactly how much he should trust you with his own money. Next is your payment history. This is like the stranger asking around the room to see if you paid back the people who lent you things before tonight. If you borrowed a lawnmower and brought it back clean and on time, your history is good. If you kept a friend's book for 3 years, he's going to hear about it. Then we have credit utilization. This is a big one. It's the measure of how many favors you are currently asking for compared to how many you could ask for. If your friends told you that you could borrow $1,000, but you are currently walking around owing them $900, the stranger sees you as being in debt trouble. He prefers to see that you have the power to ask for favors, but choose not to use them all at once. The stranger also is your credit age. This is simply how long he has been hearing your name around town. If you just moved into the neighborhood yesterday, he doesn't have much to go on. But if people have been vouching for you for 10 years, that long-term reputation makes him feel much safer. He also looks at your credit mix. He wants to know if you can handle different kinds of situations. It's one thing to borrow $5 for coffee, but it's another thing to manage a car payment or a student loan. If you've handled different types of trust, you look more experienced. Finally, there is the hard inquiry. Imagine every time you meet a new person at this party, you immediately ask them to lend you money. The whole room starts to notice. Every time a new stranger has to size you up from scratch because you asked for a loan, it sends a tiny shockwave through the room. If you do it too often, people start to wonder why you're so desperate for cash. Understanding these 6 ideas is the foundation. Once you know what the stranger is looking for, you can start to change the way you act at the table. As the night goes on, the stranger at the table isn't just listening to Marcus. He is doing math. He is using a specific formula to build that 714 score, and it all happens on a scale from 300 to 850. Every time Marcus speaks, the stranger checks off one of 5 boxes in his head. First, Marcus mentions that he always pays his tab at the local diner. The stranger nods, and the score rises. This is payment history, and it is the most important part of the math, making up 35% of the total score. It seems simple, but the stakes are incredibly high. Just one single missed payment, forgetting that tab just once, can cause a score to crash by 100 points instantly. For the stranger, a single broken promise is a huge warning sign. Then, the stranger looks at Marcus's wallet and notices he has borrowed a lot of money compared to what he's allowed to borrow. Marcus feels fine because he is under his limit, but the stranger sees a red flag. This is credit utilization, and it accounts for 30% of the score. Most people think as long as they aren't maxed out, they are safe. But there is an invisible ceiling at 30%. If Marcus has a $1,000 limit and owes $301, his score starts to dip. The stranger wants to see Marcus using as little as possible to prove he doesn't actually need the money. Next, the stranger realizes Marcus is fairly new to this social circle. He's only been around for a couple of years. This is credit age, which is 15% of the math. Even if Marcus is doing everything else right, the stranger can't give him a perfect score because there isn't enough proof over a long period. Time is a factor you simply cannot rush. The tally continues as the stranger notices Marcus only ever borrows one type of favor. He's never handled different kinds of responsibilities. This is credit mix, worth 10%. The stranger wants to see that Marcus can handle a mix of things, like a credit card and a long-term loan, without breaking a sweat. Since Marcus's profile is narrow, his score stays held back. Finally, Marcus starts asking 3 other people at the party to vouch for him all in the same hour. The stranger's eyebrows go up. These are hard inquiries, the final 10% of the formula. To the stranger, asking for too much new credit at once looks like a person in a panic. Each new ask shaves off a few points. By the time the coffee is served, the stranger has added up all these percentages to arrive at that 714. Marcus thinks he's doing okay, but he's actually bumping against invisible walls he didn't even know were there. Let's freeze the dinner party for a moment. Everyone stops moving, and the stranger's phone stays locked on that 714. While the math we just talked about is cold and hard, the reasons we trip up are often very human. Our brains aren't naturally wired to think like banks, and that leads us into 3 common traps. The first is the availability trap. This happens because our minds focus on the big stuff. You probably never forget your rent or your car payment because they are expensive and scary. But your credit score doesn't care about the size of the bill. It only cares that you made a promise. Many people let a small $15 gym membership or a forgotten streaming service go unpaid for months. They think, it's only a few bucks, I'll get to it later. But to that stranger at the table, a missed $15 payment looks exactly the same as a missed $1,000 payment. It shows a lack of organization, and it can tank your score just as fast. The second trap is utilization blindness. This is a very common instinct. You might keep a balance on your credit card, paying only the minimum each month because you want to keep your cash open for emergencies. It feels like you are being smart and staying prepared. However, you are likely missing the fact that your balance to limit ratio is silently choking your score every single day. If you are using 80% of your limit, the stranger sees someone who is leaning too hard on a crutch. You think you're being cautious, but the system sees you as a high-risk borrower. Finally, there is inquiry innocence. We've all been there. Standing at a checkout counter where the cashier offers a 20% discount if you sign up for a store credit card. It feels like a free win. You think, why not? It's just a store card. But you don't realize that the stranger at the party is watching every single new handshake. Each time you apply for a card just to save a few dollars on a pair of jeans, you are telling the system you need more credit. To you, it's a coupon. To the stranger, it's a sign that you are looking for money in too many places. These traps aren't about being bad with money. They are about how we think. We focus on the discount or the big bill, while the stranger is focused on the pattern. To get that score moving up, you have to stop looking at the individual moments and start looking at the hidden signals you are sending to the room. If you could look over the stranger's shoulder at his phone, you might see that your score is struggling, even if you feel like you are doing everything right. There are 3 clear signs that your score is being damaged in secret, and they often catch people by surprise. The first sign is when you have never missed a single payment, yet your score is stuck in the 600s. It feels like bad luck or a mistake in the system. On the surface, you are a responsible person. But the real story is usually about your utilization. If you are constantly carrying a balance that uses up more than 30% of your credit limit, the stranger sees you as someone who is living right on the edge. Even though you pay on time, that high balance is quietly killing your score. You are doing the hard work of paying bills, but the debt weight you are carrying is holding you back from the 700s. The second sign is even more confusing. Your score actually drops right after you pay off a loan. It feels completely wrong. You did a great thing by clearing your debt, yet the stranger lowers your score. This happens because your credit mix and credit age just shifted. By closing that loan, you might have removed one of the different types of credit you were managing. More importantly, if that was an old loan, you just shortened your history in the room. Suddenly, the stranger has less context about you. He doesn't see a debt-free winner. He sees a person with a thinner, younger file. The third sign is when you try to move forward with your life by applying for an apartment and a car in the same month. You are trying to be productive, but you've triggered every soft alarm in the system. Each of those applications is a hard inquiry that shaves points off the score. If you already have a thin file, meaning you haven't been in the social circle long, and your utilization is already high, these multiple handshakes make the stranger very nervous. He sees someone who is suddenly desperate for a lot of new things all at once. Instead of seeing a growing adult, he sees a red flag, and your score takes a hit right when you need it most. Now we have to pull back the curtain and ask a tough question. Who actually wins when you are confused about your score? The answer is the lenders. While it feels like the credit score is a report card for your financial health, that isn't its true purpose. The system wasn't built to cheer you on. It was built to predict how likely you are to pay back a loan in a way that makes the most money for the bank. Imagine a borrower who says, "I pay every bill on time, so I'm doing great," but they are constantly using 80% of their credit limit. To a bank, this person is the ideal customer. Why? Because they are responsible enough to keep paying, but their high utilization keeps their score low. Because the score is low, they will never qualify for the best, lowest interest rates. This means the bank can charge them much more for the exact same loan. They are technically reliable, but structurally expensive to themselves. This creates a hidden feedback loop that traps millions of people. It starts with a simple misunderstanding of the rules. That leads to a suboptimal score. Not a terrible one, but one that is just okay. That okay score leads to a higher interest rate on your car or credit card. That higher interest rate means more profit for the lender and less money in your pocket. Because the lenders are making more money when your score is stuck in the middle, they have almost no incentive to truly educate you on how to move it higher. The stranger at the party isn't necessarily your enemy, but he isn't your coach either. He is a gatekeeper. If you keep playing by the rules you think exist, you stay in a cycle where you are just responsible enough to keep paying, but never healthy enough to stop overpaying for the right to borrow. To break this loop, you have to realize that the scoring model is a math game designed for their revenue, not your wealth. Once you see the hidden structure, you can stop being the ideal customer for the bank and start being the ideal manager of your own future. We return to the dinner party, but the mood has changed. The light conversation about jobs and neighborhoods is over. Marcus is ready for a big step in his life. He is applying for a mortgage to buy his first home. He turns to the stranger, the one who has been quietly watching him for years, and asks for his blessing. Marcus thinks he has been a good guest. He thinks his 714 score is a badge of honor. But as the stranger looks at his phone, Marcus realizes that what he thought he was showing the room is not what the stranger actually saw. This is where the loop inverts and becomes a trap. Because Marcus kept his credit card balances high, around 80%, the stranger sees a person who is constantly leaning on a financial crutch. Even though Marcus paid every bill on time, that high utilization triggered a score drop right when he needed it to be highest. Now, instead of getting the gold tier interest rate of 6%, the stranger tells him he only qualifies for 8%. That 2% difference might sound small, but it changes everything. It adds hundreds of dollars to Marcus's monthly house payment. This higher monthly burden eats into his savings, making it harder for him to pay down his credit cards. Because he can't pay down the cards, his utilization stays high. Because his utilization stays high, his score stays low. The cycle locks in. What started as a friendly dinner party has become a closed door. Marcus is working harder than ever, but he is running in place. He is paying more for the same house just because he didn't understand the rules the stranger was using. The same person who smiled and gave him a 714 earlier is now the person charging him a confusion tax. The harmless party is now a barrier between Marcus and the life he wanted to build. The system didn't break. It worked exactly the way it was designed to keep Marcus in a loop that is profitable for everyone but him. To navigate this party successfully, you have to recognize which stage you are currently standing in. Think of this as the ladder of trust. At stage 1, you have no credit history at all. In our dinner party, this means the stranger has never heard your name. You are a ghost in the room, and because there is no data, the stranger cannot trust you with anything. You move to stage 2 when you get your first credit card or a small student loan. Now you finally exist in the room. The stranger has started a file on you, but he's still watching you closely to see if you'll stumble. Many people then move to stage 3. This is where you make consistent payments, but you have poor utilization habits. You pay on time, but your cards are nearly full. Because of this, your score plateaus in the 600s. You feel like you're doing well, but the stranger is still keeping his distance because you look like you are living on the edge. Stage 4 is where the real growth happens. This is when you correct your utilization, keeping your balances low, and allow your credit age to grow. As the years pass and your balances stay small, your score finally climbs into the 700s. To reach stage 5, the elite level, you must diversify your mix and manage your inquiries. You handle a car loan and a card at the same time, and you stop asking for new credit. This is how you reach that 750 to 800 range, where the stranger opens every door for you. However, there is a stage 6, and it is a steep drop. One major mistake: a single missed payment, a maxed out card, or applying for too many things at once can cause your score to drop hard and fast. It takes years to build that trust, but only one night to break it. This leads to stage 7, recovery. This is a slow, deliberate process. It usually requires 12 to 24 months of perfect behavior just to rebuild your reputation in the room. The stranger is patient, but he has a very long memory. Knowing these stages helps you realize that a score isn't just a number. It's a reflection of where you are on your journey toward total financial freedom. To take control of your seat at the table, you need a plan that actually works. The first move is to change how you look at your credit card balance. Most people hear the 30% rule, but that is just the floor, not the goal. If you want a top-tier score, keep your balance below 10% of your limit. And whatever you do, do not carry a balance just to show activity. The stranger doesn't need you to pay interest to trust you. He just needs to see that you are responsible. Second, never close your oldest credit card. When you close an old account, the stranger's memory of your long history disappears. It's like erasing 10 years of friendship in one night. Keep that card open by putting one small recurring charge on it, like a $5 subscription, and let it age like a fine wine. Third, space out your applications. Every time you ask for a new loan or card, a new stranger is watching. Wait at least 6 months between requests so you don't look like you're in a rush for cash. To protect your foundation, move 4 is to set up autopay for at least the minimum amount on every account. Since your payment history is 35% of your score, you must protect it at all costs. Finally, check your utilization ratio the week before your statement closes. Not the day it is due. The date that matters is the reporting date. That is the day the bank whispers your balance to the stranger. If you pay it off a few days early, the stranger sees a low balance, which keeps your score high. Keep in mind, a score in the 680s is not a disaster. Many people buy homes and build wealth, starting right there. My goal isn't to make you afraid of the number. It's to make sure you know which lever to pull to move it. Marcus sits down at the same dinner party next to the same stranger. They talk for 20 minutes about their lives and their goals. The stranger smiles, pulls out his phone, and prepares to show a number. But this time, Marcus isn't nervous. He has played the game by the real rules, and he already knows exactly what number is coming. Do you? Subscribe for one personal finance concept, explained simply every week. No jargon, no fluff.